Hi guys, and welcome back to the Bird Photography Show with Glenn Bartley
Hello, everybody.
and me, Jan Wegener.
In this week's episode, we're going to be talking all about ways that you can make money from your photos. And we're going to have the second edition of our Photo of the Week segment. Only this time, we're going to be looking at some of your photos that you tagged with the hashtag BirdPhotoShow. So that should be pretty fun later on in the episode.
But before we jump in, let's look at our last book winner of Glenn's awesome hummingbird book. And this week, Daniel Patterson won the book. Congratulations, Daniel. Thanks for liking the video, subscribing, and commenting.
Yeah, congratulations to all three of the winners of the books. I really hope you enjoy them. And we really appreciate all of you guys watching the show and commenting. And of course, for those of you who have bought our pro sets and our setup guides, Jan's Masterclass, my ebooks, we really appreciate it because that really helps. That's one of the ways that we make money from photography and from providing this content and stuff. So we super appreciate it. And we will definitely be doing more giveaways in the future.
And if you didn't win a book, you can obviously get yourself a copy of this awesome book on the link down there in the description. And I finally got my copy as well. It got lost in us with Australia Post once, but it's here now and I had to read through it. It's awesome, fantastic photos. And my favorite is definitely this cover photo of this awesome bird. Now I like how they made it really sort of shiny as well to make the bird stand out. So even if you just have this book standing on your shelf like you do, it just looks really cool. So I'm going to find a good spot for it. My first reaction was, geez, there's a lot of hummingbirds in this world.
There's a lot of hummingbirds.
Photos and photos of awesome hummingbirds. So fantastic book, and glad I finally have it.
So yeah, and today we're going to be talking about how you can actually make some money from your photography, from your bird photos. And I think it's definitely safe to say that I'm sure you, and I know I've gotten a lot of emails over the years from people asking me, hey, I really want to be a professional wildlife photographer. How do I do that? How do I start to make some money from this? Because it's not that easy.
It's definitely not that easy, and I think it's a fantastic goal to have, but there's certain steps you have to take along the way to actually get there, and it can look very different for different people as well. Some people just want to make some money selling some of their photos or something else on the side to pay for trips or equipment, kind of like a side hustle, or other people want to have it as a full-time career. And I think it's a fantastic goal to have, and hopefully we can help you a little bit along the way today.
For sure. And we totally acknowledge that it can also be like pretty discouraging, because if you kind of don't do things in the right order or don't have the right approach, it can be really hard to actually make any money doing this. The truth is there's really only probably a handful of full-time professional bird photographers in the world. Like there's just not that many out there. So we're going to try to give you guys some tips to help you out on your way there.
It's definitely all about finding your niche and your kind of spot in the field to make it work for you.
We're going to break this down into a few different phases of how you can make some moolah with your photos. Now, phase one is really, there's no way to sugarcoat this. You have to get really good at taking pictures of birds if you're going to want to make any money from actually doing it. To be honest, it's not like other certain jobs where you could just go out and try to like get a job, maybe apprenticing or like just apply for a job. Like if you're going to become a professional bird photographer, there's just no way around it. You have to get extremely good. You have to spend a lot of time. And realistically, it's probably going to take like at least 5 years to get good enough at your craft that people want to take pictures like you, they admire you, they think you are a professional. That's all going to take time.
So it's definitely a journey, and one important factor to focus on, I think, along this journey is to always think about what can make you unique as a bird photographer. Like you and I, we're both professional bird photographers, but we do things very differently. For instance, I have a unique style. You have your unique style, you do really amazing trips. So there's a lot of different things that can help you to differentiate yourself from the crowd. And that's through your images, that can be to places you're traveling to. Maybe you just do extreme travel all the time. There's so many different factors that can make you unique. But I think it's definitely important that you have those certain things that make you unique and make you stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Definitely have to have almost like where your images, where people see them even without knowing that they're yours, and you're like, oh, I think I know who probably took that photo, you know? Like there's certain people who you can just see an image and you have a guess that, oh yeah, that's probably that person's photo. And you have to have your image be where the majority of people who see the photos are saying like, wow, look at those photos. That's key. If you can't get there, honestly, it's going to be really hard to actually start making money from photography.
Sometimes my style is a little bit controversial, but a lot of people still talk about it. And it, as you say, a lot of people recognize like a small thumbnail, and that's definitely one way to stand out.
All right, so once you've gotten good at taking bird pictures, you've kind of found your unique style. Phase 2 is you need to learn how to promote yourself and your work. You need to have a lot of people seeing your images, liking your images, thinking they're great. And you need to also have people kind of start to know who you are. Because one thing that I think both of us have found is that sort of people feel like they kind of know who we are. Like from YouTube, I started putting my first videos, please do not go back and watch them on YouTube, in probably like 2009. I had a really crazy curly hair. And so they're filmed with like a point and shoot, like, 240 or like 360p square format. It looks like you're going to watch like a VHS tape or something. But I knew that, I wanted people to kind of know who I was and kind of come along on these journeys to South America with me. And if I'm teaching a workshop, I wanted people to see, look, Glenn's a normal guy. He's teaching this class. He looks like he'd be fun to hang out with for a few weeks, and to see the actual clients on the trip having a good time and everything. And I just knew that that would really help me to be able to sell future tours and for people to get to know me. And so that was, I think, a really good thing that I did early on.
You're making a great point. And I think this is one of the mistakes that are easy to make for nature photographers, because we're often out there by ourselves in the bush, don't have too many other people around us. And so it's easy to only like post your images online, for instance. If people can't see your face, they can't connect with you, and it just makes it so much harder to actually build that following that you need to ultimately be able to make some money with the photography as well. So once you've done all these things, you've put in the time, you've learned your craft, you've found your niche, you've built a following, I think it's still important to not suddenly only start to focus on the money. You still want to provide value for the people that are following you. It's not all about making money for you, but for me, it has always been about providing value to the people. Like with our process, for instance, we helped hundreds of people to speed up their editing process. It makes it so much easier. With one click, you can transform your raw files. So I know you are the same. You want to create products that help people. And if you create products that help people, the money will come naturally. So rather than focusing on the money, you should always focus on creating something that can help a lot of other people. It can also be making a nice book or nice calendar that brings joy to a lot of people. So there's many different ways of doing it, but it's definitely important that you don't actually focus on the money. You want to focus on providing value and joy to other people.
And everything should kind of be like a positive feedback loop. Like, for example, if you, let's say you sell a photo to a magazine, well, then more people see your photos. Maybe they go to your website, they see your photos, they start to follow you. And so you want to be trying like a little snowball rolling down the hill, gathering momentum. That's what you should be focusing on early on, is gathering that momentum.
Totally. And I think part of it is definitely to be active on a lot of social media platforms these days. Back in the day when we started out, it was those internet forums, those PHP forums. That was the place to be. I don't think it's the place to be anymore, unless you only want to be seen by 3 people. There's still some people there. I'm not saying you shouldn't post there at all. It can still be a good tool, but this is not where the masses will see you. So I think if you want to make this a career in this day and age, or even make some money with it, you have to be on a lot of social media platforms. I think Instagram, YouTube. And if I was starting out at the moment, TikTok would probably be the best way to start out. Not necessarily to show your photos, but to show yourself as a person and to kind of present yourself as a nature photographer, maybe even in a funny way. You don't have to do silly dances. I mean, I know someone who's just posting nice videos of himself and then the videos that he takes in the field, and he has almost 10 million followers there now. And that's happened
crazy.
over the last 2 or 3 years. So it's still possible to build a huge following, but you definitely have to spend a lot of time and effort posting on these platforms as well, because it's kind of what you say as well. It's that feedback loop. You're posting, but then you also need to engage with the people that you're talking to. For instance, on YouTube, Glenn and I always make a big effort to try and reply to every comment. It gets really hard sometimes, but we don't want to put out a video and then just go away and then put out another video. No, we want to engage with all of you, hear your thoughts, hear your comments, your ideas. So I think it's very important to be engaged in that way and to not be scared of trends. Now we're photographers, but if you want to get a lot of followers at the moment, you have to do videos, you have to do reels. That's just the reality of it. And I think that's only going to get more and more in the future. So if you want to make it these days, I think you have to at least have a certain level of video skills, because video will be the main format, even for photographers going forward.
Even though I've been doing YouTube and videos for a long time, I've always thought of them as kind of like a side product, obviously, to the photography, and it's been slow to really put that more effort in to like get a good microphone and, you know, try to do a bit better quality content. But these days, people are so used to seeing that higher caliber content that if you just put out garbage, people are just going to be all over you or just completely stop tuning in. So I think those are all good points that really will help you on the way towards building that following and ultimately being able to earn a living from something that you love to do.
And if you're not comfortable in front of the camera, it doesn't mean you have to be in front of the camera, because you can also do podcasts. You don't have to do YouTube. Just because YouTube works for me doesn't mean it works for you. You still have to find your own niche. So you don't have to make crazy TikToks, crazy YouTube videos 3 times a week, but then you can find other things you can do. You might write blog posts, you might write a lot of magazine articles. That's still a good way to get exposure. Or you can easily do a podcast. You buy a $50 microphone, you start recording yourself. So there's no reason not to do something in the end. I think the most important thing is really to get out there, get started, and do things. A lot of people always tell me why they can't do something, but I think what you should really focus on is just starting something. Look at my first YouTube video, and you just said, don't look at Glenn's first YouTube videos. But basically, we just started with crap equipment, did not so great videos, and obviously now over the years it has transitioned to a lot more professional looking videos.
All right, guys, finally, phase 3, time to start making some cash from your photos, but not so fast. One of the things that's really important is that there's really not just like one thing you can do. I mean, both Jan and I we have not all of our eggs in one basket. You know, we have lots of different little things, lots of different revenue streams where money comes in from different sources, and we've built that up over time.
And that's actually the most important part, and I think where a lot of people go wrong. Exactly as you say, you don't get $5,000 a month from one employer. No, you get that from 5, 6, 7, 8 different things. That can be ebooks, that can be YouTube ad revenue, that can be other things you're selling, there can be workshops in the field, there can be print sales, there can be calendar sales, there can be books. There's so many different things, and then some of the money you make, you can invest in other things that gives you a bit more revenue. So there's a lot of different things that you can do and need to do. You can't decide to become a bird photographer from like one day to another. And that's exactly what happened to me as well. I knew I wanted to be a bird photographer, but I couldn't make ends meet for a long time. So for me, I found real estate photography was a great way to utilize my gear. I could then also write off my gear on tax, and I actually had fun photographing the houses. So that was one way for me to work real estate photography full time and have bird photography as a side hustle for many years until I can then actually make enough money from the bird photography. That would be my advice for people. Don't try to jump right in today, because you'll probably eating very cheap food for a very long time, and you might never make it work, and you will get discouraged. Whereas if you actually have a job or have something else that gives you some money, work away on the weekends or before work or after work, edit photos at night, build that up, and then over time you'll get to a point where you can actually transition into doing it full time.
Yeah, that's definitely a great point. I think it's funny, you've probably had this experience. Whenever you tell somebody like, oh yeah, I'm a professional wildlife photographer, the first thing they're like, oh, so you like work for National Geographic or what? Like everybody just assumes that if you're a professional, there must be some company that's like paying you a salary to do this. And the reality is, I would bet that there's very few professional wildlife photographers these days that are collecting any kind of like reasonable salary from an organization like National Geographic. I guarantee they're making more money from speaking engagements, from leading tours, from other things like that. It's a real misconception, I think, that people think that there's just like a job where somebody pays you a salary to do this. It doesn't really work that way at all. Probably the first money I ever made from wildlife photography was I knew that I had to decent ability to write. So I started writing articles for one magazine and sending in like an article with photos that, needs very little proofreading. And then of course they were like willing to publish those. Not a lot of money, a couple $100, but hey, it's something, right? It gets you on your way.
And it's actually a lot easier to sell an article with photos than trying to just sell photos to a magazine, because most magazines, they get swamped with photos all the time. What they actually need is grabbing articles. If you're great at writing, this can be a great way to actually sell your photos and make some extra money as well, because if you deliver a whole article, you will definitely get more money than just selling some photos.
It's someone's job to be the producer, the content creator of this magazine. And so you need to make their job easier for them. So if you give them a final product, you're way more likely to get that published and ultimately to get paid. The take-home message here is there's lots of different ways you can make money with your camera in bird photography. It could be selling the photos directly, but don't count on a lot. We've talked about YouTube, we've talked about, e-products, like we have our pro sets and our setup guides and things. I lead a lot of photo tours. That's for me the biggest part typically of my annual revenue. But you have to think about definitely creating multiple revenue streams. That is really going to be important.
100%. And the more you build, the more you will make, and the safer your business will be as well. If you just have one source of income, you're working for yourself, that source of income, for instance, doesn't buy your images anymore, you're really screwed. Whereas if you have some ebooks, you're doing some tours, you're selling some photos, you have some stock agency, you're doing some YouTube video, suddenly the money just keeps trickling in and puts you on a great foundation to actually make this a viable career.
We know we've kind of made it sound hard in some ways, but we also don't want to sugarcoat it and just say, oh yeah, it's easy, everybody could do it. Because it's not. It's not easy, and everyone can't do it. You have to really work hard, get good, learn to work the social media channels. There's a lot of steps you're going to have to do, but you can do it. If you really love birds and you really love photography, it is possible.
It's definitely possible, but in the end, a lot depends on you and how much you want it, because there's no predetermined path you can kind of go on. You have to go along the journey, figure it out yourself along the way, and then make it happen. So you can do it, but you definitely have to put in the work.
We've talked enough about making money with your camera, so now I think it's time for another edition of the Photo of the Week. But this time, we're gonna do it a little bit differently. Now we're gonna actually look at some of your photos. We had almost 1,000 people tag their photos with the hashtag #BirdPhotoShow, and we have a lot to pick from. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna trade back and forth. We're each gonna pick one, we're gonna talk about it. So why don't I go first?
Sure.
All right, so the first photo that I picked was this really cool shot of this tufted puffin by Bonnie Block. And okay, so I picked this photo for a couple of reasons. One is that it's a really cool bird. The tufted puffin is such a cool species. And when you think of photographing alcids or seabirds, this is the perfect conditions that you want to have. This glassy, beautiful blue water. It's a cool species, it's great conditions, and I'm jealous because I don't have a nice tufted puffin shot like this on blue water. So what do you think of this shot, Jan?
I think it's a great photo. I assume it's taken from a boat. It's not the lowest angle, but this is as best as you can get of one of these birds on the water probably.
Yeah.
So it's really nice light. There's nice detail in the black and the bright areas, and overall, yeah, very nice image. The first image I picked was of this volcano hummingbird, and I actually thought it was quite an interesting exercise to scroll through this many images, because I really actually wanted to learn about myself as well. What makes an image stand out or grab me? For me, a lot had to do with the editing. I really liked images that kind of stood out. A lot of nature images are always kind of a little bit dull, a little bit dark green. And so something that is a little bit different, a little bit brighter, I guess a little bit more like my own style, always stands out to me more. And this one I like because it just has really amazing detail. Even on this tiny Instagram photo, you can still see all the detail in the throat. It has really nice colors. It has a nice background. The only thing I think would be ideal in this case would be if it was looking the other way, kind of not out of the frame on this side, rather kind of looking into the frame. But this could also be due to the Instagram crop, because I assume the whole image in 3x2 format probably has enough space on the other side that it still works. But I was very impressed, especially with the nice colors, the nice light, and the nice details in here. But also that really tiny, flimsy perch, which also works so well for a hummingbird. And your Hummingbird Pro, what do you think?
It's a really nice shot. It's a beautiful bird up in the high elevation parts of Costa Rica and Panama is where these guys live. And it's a stunning little bird, and it needs that delicate perch ideally. So yeah, I think that's a cool one. Birding Crew Costa Rica.
Well
Nice
done.
job. Yeah, I think it's an interesting point that you made there, Jan, about when you're scrolling through like almost 1,000 images that were tagged. The ones that stood out were definitely ones that I felt like were well processed. And, you know, that's such a critical part. We've talked about it so much on the show, but it is really important. And if you guys want to make your images look the best they can be, definitely give a look at our pro sets, because so many people have told us how much they've helped them to get great results and save time in the digital darkroom. So definitely check those out. We're going to look at another shot now from SS Wildlife. And this one I picked is also of a hummingbird, also a very similar sized hummingbird. I like this like leafy little coniferous perch. The pose shows off that gorget and the details really nicely. The perch really complements things. My only wish in this shot is I'm not super drawn to the sort of like brighter white part that's kind of down below the bird. I kind of wish the photographer potentially could have been a little bit more to the right or whatnot, to have had just a more kind of uniform background. But other than that, I think it's a really nice shot of this hummingbird. What do you think, Jan?
I totally agree, and this was actually in the list of my shortlisted images as well, so it very much appealed to me as well. So I like the perch, I obviously like the hummingbird, I like the nice and even light on it as well, the beautiful colors in the throat. And I agree, personally, if this was my own image, I would probably brighten the background on the left hand side a little bit, and then probably just brush a little bit of green over that other area to even it out a little bit. And these little things is exactly what Glenn and I teach you in my masterclass and his ebooks as well, how you can do some little fixes that can still improve an already great image and make it even better. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the image as it is. It's really nice. It appealed to both of us, but sometimes, again, it's personal preference, but there's little things that you can do to make it even better. But fantastic image, SS Wildlife. So the next image I picked was because of the action that stood out to me, because in that little square crop, all I could see was a bee-eater hat with a dragonfly mid-air about to swallow it. And that was just something I was drawn to. But again, I also like the nice soft light in this image and the colors. Although, as you know me, if this was my image, I would probably push the colors a tiny bit more, because it feels ever so slightly a little bit flat for me. So I think a slight curves, a slight level adjustment, and a little bit more saturation could put this even more over the top. The perch is also not my favorite, but I think the action is so cool that I'm not even looking at the perch. So an image that really grabbed me, I think really cool action. I mean, that's one big ass dragonfly as well this bird is about to swallow. So fantastic shot. I was very impressed with it.
Yeah, definitely. So this one's by Naidu Kumpatla. Sometimes you have a moment in wildlife nature photography that the action or the moment itself is so interesting and special that some of those critical core elements that we've talked about can kind of be let slip. If this bird was just sitting on the perch, we would really have to kind of say like, okay, this perch is really not ideal. It's too big, it's too chunky, it's horizontal. We can't really sugarcoat that. But the photo as a whole is really interesting, obviously, because of the action. But overall, Naidu, an absolutely great shot. One that I would be really happy if I took it myself.
I brought another shot of this awesome yellow-tailed black cockatoo. I always find them very hard to get close to. So whenever I see a nice portrait of one, I'm always drawn to it. And this one in particular is a very spectacular bird. It has a lot of yellow in the throat as well that a lot of other birds don't have. We can have a little bit of a vote in the comments as well and get your opinion as well, Glenn. If this was your image, would you guys remove that little twig there? Because it might look difficult to remove, but it's actually not that difficult. You can remove that probably in 1 minute. And personally, if it was my image, I would have been tempted to do it. I don't mind it because it gives a bit of an idea of the bird just sitting in a bush. But at the same time, I feel like it doesn't add a lot to the image. So it would definitely be a choice to remove it at least.
I would definitely remove that. Sometimes when you remove something from an image, it also changes how you want to compose the image. So with that gone, I would have the bird slightly down and to the left in the frame, giving it a bit more space to look into. So yeah, it's a beautiful bird. Cloning things can be controversial. Some people just say, you know what, I don't want to clone anything. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But if it was mine, I'd take it out. The last photo that I brought is of this absolutely stunning little oriental dwarf kingfisher. And I just thought this was such a cool image. Really what makes this one is this prey item that is like literally almost the size of the bird. This one I think is on a bit more of an interesting perch, although the perch is rather large. It's a really cool moment and such a unique shot to have this huge lizard from this stunning little forest kingfisher. What do you think about it, Jan?
Definitely, it was also a shot that I clicked on when I was going through the images, because obviously the colors of the bird, the big prey, definitely stands out. I guess it was taken near nest because it's facing head first, so whenever they have to prey head first, they have it so they can stick it right into the baby's beak. So if you have them sideways or the other way around, the parents are probably going to eat it, whereas if the head's first, then it's probably going to put it into nest. So well done, the Lord of the Light.
The Lord of the Light. Somebody's a Game of Thrones fan.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this week's bird photography show. We had a lot of fun looking through your images, so keep tagging them with Bird Photo Show on Instagram, or we'll look through some more over the next few weeks. Let us know in the comments if there's any improvements or any ideas that you want us to do in this Bird Photo of the Week segment. And other than that, please let us know in the comments, are you kind of making money with your photography? Are you wanting it as a career? Are you a professional bird photographer? Are you struggling? Let us know in the comments. Give us a thumbs up for this video. Subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video very soon. Bye, guys.
We'll see you next time, guys. Thanks so much for watching.